Hey there, this is going to be a video on how to replace a fan motor on a Lennox air conditioning compressor. So I'm going to go through step by step. I've seen a lot of videos online. All of them seem to be leaving off like really important parts. So I'm just going to go through this step by step. I'm just a homeowner guy. I'll show you how I do it, and perhaps this will help you, okay? So here we go. First thing, I have a dead Lennox air conditioner. This is it right here. That's the fan. The fan's not turning and spinning even though all the rest of the unit's working. So there's a couple things you should probably check first. So let's get into that and I'll tell you how to do that. So the first thing you want to know is what sort of air conditioner you have. This one, mine, happens to be a Lennox. And right here, if it ends up being the motor, you've got important information here that will help you. You can see right here that it marks out that it's a 1/3 horsepower motor and that it's a single phase, and so that's going to help you later on if you determine that yes indeed it's the motor. But before we do that, let's check the capacitor. The capacitor is a really cheap part. I don't remember what I paid for mine. I want to say it was like 20 or 30, maybe $40. Way less than a Lennox OEM motor. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this plate off and see if it's actually the capacitor that's the problem. And oh, by the way, a very important safety tip: always turn the power off to your unit before you do any work inside here. Take this for real. For the power, you can see my power here. There's an on and an off. It tells you whether it's on or off. So you take this out and it is now off, so nothing's going to happen to it. So that is the fast way, at least with this particular unit, to turn the power off and make sure that you're not going to get any juice going through these lines while you're working on this unit. So to remove the cover and check the capacitor, you've just got to take off some of these screws here. You can see them right here. And so that's going to be my first job, is go ahead and take these screws out so I can get this cover off. This part's pretty straightforward. Just going ahead and loosening each one of these to get the cover off. So I will spare you the boredom of getting them all off. So next stop, I'll show you with it removed. Okay, with the screws removed, we go ahead and lower this unit. It just comes out like that. Whoops. Basically, it just slides on down. And that will show you a couple of things we want to check before determining whether it's a bad motor or not. This is a capacitor. What's a capacitor? Think of it as a bunch of your buddies all ready to give you a push on your bicycle. This sends a charge to the motor that gets the motor running. If you got a bad capacitor, they're not very expensive, and you can do a test, electrical test. There's information online for how to test your capacitor to make sure that it is functioning properly. I've already done that. This capacitor's fine, so that's not the issue. These are the contacts. These contacts can also cause a problem. I've already checked those as well. They seem to be checking out. All the wiring looks good. No rats have eaten the wiring, so everything looks good there. So that is why I am pretty darn sure that this bad unit is actually the motor itself. So next stop is go ahead and remove this top piece so we can access the motor. Alright, so it's basically the same deal. There's a bunch of screws that are all holding the top to the side. And so what I'm going to do is just go through and start taking these screws off so that I can access the motor itself. So again, just got to take all these off. It's kind of boring. Let's fast forward. Now that I've got all the screws off, we are going to be almost ready to lift this unit up. To make it easier, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and undo these wires from the connectors here, so that when I pull this unit away, I can bring all of those wires with me. So that's my next step, is to go ahead and cut off some of these cable ties, and then go ahead and undo the wiring from the wire harness here. I suggest you use a camera or video like this, and you can see the wires. We have a purple wire going in, and that's coming from the capacitor, right? So the purple is going to go to the capacitor. We have an orange wire, and the orange is going to go down to this block right here. You can see it. And then we have another wire, which is the black wire, and that's going to this block right here. So make sure you note that. Use your camera if you need to, and that way you know how to put the wiring back together when you're ready to go. All right, so I have the fan motor wires separated. They're ready to come out, and so the next step will be to go ahead and lift this unit out. I need two hands, so I can't really show you. You want to be careful. You don't want to mess with the fan blades. You want to kind of leave those alone. But basically, it's going to lift this unit out like this. All right, I've gone ahead and moved the top over to a table so that it's easier to work with. But a quick note, you see all the kind of debris in here, in these vanes. Number one, you want to be very careful with these. Because you want the airflow to go through, so you don't want to really mess with those too much. But there's a lot of debris in here, and this is a good time to actually kind of clean these out. You could take a hose and go ahead and squirt them out from the inside out to get rid of a lot of the debris and make sure that your unit is pulling as much air as possible through this. So just an opportunity to go ahead and clean it out. So I went ahead and set the unit upside down here on this picnic table, number one, because I've got shade. Makes it a little bit easier, but also too so that we can access it. The secret is to be very careful with these fan blades. You don't want to cause them to become out of balance by accidentally hitting them or tweaking them out of position. So make sure that you're careful with those. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and take the screw out. I like to lubricate these with a little bit of lubricant, you know, a little oil. So we could use, you know, WD-40, something like that, so that it can penetrate in these threads and make it easier to get this lock screw out. So that's the next step. So I put a little bit of lubricating oil in there. I'm letting it kind of soak a little bit. You can very, very gently tap it just to kind of work the oil in. Let it get in there, and so now it's just taking the wrench and undoing that lock screw. Okay, so with that lock nut off, we can go ahead and take this off. You can see in my case it's coming off quite easily. Sometimes you might have to put a little bit of penetrating oil in there if you've got some rust or something. In my case, I don't have that issue, so we just go ahead and very gently lift these blades off, and we're going to set the fan blades aside, again trying not to damage them in any way. And this here is the motor. So yay, we got to the motor. You can see the information on it here, and again, next step is we're going to go ahead and pull off the screws that are holding this motor to the unit. So that's these 4 screws here. So next stop is to go ahead and take these screws off, which I will do now. It may help for you to lean this up against something. I'm doing that right now, or you could set it upside down. Just have to remember that you've got that shaft, so I wouldn't set that on a glass table. But all I'm doing is just going ahead and taking a wrench and just undoing these. So again, kind of a two-hand job, and it's kind of boring just watching these nuts coming off, so I'm just going to fast forward. Alright, so just taking the last one off, what I'm doing is I'm resting this on the shaft and being, again, very gentle, and just taking these nuts off of the screws. So there you see them, and so these I'm just going to set aside. Again, a little bit of a two-hand job, but basically I'm just going to go ahead and lift this cover away from the motor. And so that's next up. And there we go. So now I'm just pulling the wiring through that hole that was right there. And my dog is barking. And so now we can see again that yes indeed, this is a 1/3 horsepower single phase motor, 60 hertz, 1.7 amps, and I have already purchased the motor that replaces this. And then also you can see right here the RPMs, 1075. So I ordered a OEM motor. Mine was like $148, I think, not including shipping. So there are other kinds of motors out there, but I just like using OEM. I don't mind paying a little bit more. Comes with a 1-year warranty, by the way, so anything goes wrong, that's covered. So next step is go get the new motor.